Hi, welcome back to the She Invest podcast with your host, Allie Fugit.
And Carrie Douglas.
And today we are going to be actually talking with Carrie about return on equity. And she's going to break down for us cash on cash versus equity returns. So let's jump into it and get started.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to talk about this because someone brought it to my attention recently that I should be evaluating the return on equity. And so I figure we just go through a case study of my first STR that I purchased 2 years ago. And, what did I pay for the property? What are the returns like? And we can actually do this in real time because I haven't decided what I want to do yet. But I can tell, my intuition is telling me that it's time to either sell or do a cash out refi. And so I need to kind of evaluate the different options. So I would love to kind of do that in real time where everyone can take a look at it with me.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to bring our whiteboard on here so Carrie can break it down for you guys.
Yeah. So these are some pictures of the property. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath. It's located in Florida. It has a caged pool. I will just sort of jot down some of the facts about this deal. So I purchased it for $380. Wow, that's some nice writing happening right there. And it's really delayed, so I apologize. I purchased it for $380. I put down about $50,000 at closing. So that was my down payment. And so I have a loan amount of about $330 when I bought the property. And since then, that has been paid down a little bit. I also had to put in an additional $25,000 for furnishings, and there was some travel required to do this deal. And so my all-in is $75,000. And when we look at a cash on cash return, we'd be looking at, how much are we getting in cash flow in exchange for that $75K that I was all in on this property. So if I take my gross on this property is $66,000, and I subtract my expenses, which are higher than I did expect, higher than I underwrote, at 47, my cash flow is $19,000 per year. And so if we took the $19,000 that I'm making and divide it by the $75K that I am all in cash so far on this property, that is a 25% cash on cash return. And that's not too terrible. Like I said, I thought it was going to be a little bit better, but it's not bad. And that fits the criteria that I was looking for when I was purchasing the property. Because I get to use it for personal use for a vacation place for my family, I'm comfortable with this cash on cash return. So I know I started kind of quickly. What questions do you have so far?
Yeah, no. Okay. So I think that it's important for those who may be listening in that maybe don't have a lot of experience with cash on cash return, specifically, is that, what would be a cash on cash return that a lot of people would look for, and how is it different in real estate for what we would look for versus if they're doing stocks?
Yeah. So personally, I won't touch anything that has less than a 20% cash on cash. And when I'm calculating how much cash is acquired, in maybe a long-term rental situation, it would simply be the down payment required. But in a short-term rental, you're going to spend money on furnishings. Maybe you're going to make a few repairs to the property to make it a little bit nicer. All that needs to be calculated and added up to the total cash you're bringing to the table to do the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Good points.
What do you guys look for? Are you looking 20, like I said, 20% below that is a threshold where I won't even look at it. I definitely want it to be better than that. And I thought it would be a little better, but 25 still isn't bad. What for you guys? What do you look for personally?
Yeah, we are the same. We kind of upped our standards a little bit in the last couple of years. And we really don't want to touch anything that's less than 22. Just because of with the value we know that we can add to the property. So 22 is kind of our base, but of course we're looking at anything above and beyond that. But I think what's unique again to our position is that we are looking for things that need complete overhaul renovation because that's the background we come from. So we are looking at properties that need a lot of value add.
And so when you are adding a ton of money at the beginning to bring that property up to par, you're going to be spending more cash on the front end. So it makes sense that your threshold might be a little different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of the point I was getting at. We do know that we're gonna have to throw it all out at the beginning. So 22 is our base. 25 is preferable, but if it's just some place that we absolutely love, great location, views, whatever, we're okay with the 22. But 25, I think, is what we'd be more comfortable with. And like your property is perfect in that aspect with how much you've put into it and everything. So
yeah. And so like as I calculated the cash on cash at the time I underwrote the deal, and for the first year we were in operation, I was like, okay, this isn't so bad. This is fine. But now we're at this point where the property has gone up in value a lot. And I had been talking about a cash out refi. And somebody said, why don't you evaluate your return on equity? And so I just was like, okay, I hadn't thought about that. Let me do that. And so I want to kind of run through what that calculation would look like and how it's different. So when you begin, this is a different, hold on. When you begin talking about return on equity, it should really be the same as your cash on cash when you first buy the property, because at that point in time, you've put in the 75,000, you're making the 19, like those are the same. But as time goes on, if the property increases in value, your equity is going up. And so when we look at the fraction of, let me just delete, we can edit this out later. Sorry. I just want to delete this box here because it's not relevant right now. So basically when we're looking at, I'm sorry, Allie.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
This box is on the wrong screen.
It's okay.
And I have
just
never...
click it. Just click it and hit delete on your screen.
I mean, your keyboard. So hold on.
Oh, sorry.
That's my problem, is that I could not quickly delete it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We can edit that out.
Yeah, when we figure out how to edit.
We got this.
Okay. So when we start looking at return on equity, we're recognizing that the value of the property has gone up. So I'm going to look at this at purchase versus now. And so at the time of purchase, I was looking at this 19,000 out of the 75 I had in. And that was the 25% cash on cash. Now the property is worth a lot more. So I have a $500,000 valuation on the property. It's gone up from 380 to 500. So
that's the appraisal, like recent appraisal on it.
Yeah, I didn't have an appraisal. That's just what the realtor feels it would sell for, and based on comps in the neighborhood that I've been kind of watching. I still owe the original mortgage, but I've paid down the principal from 330 now to 320. If I sold this, I would potentially pay a realtor or a couple realtors, probably $25,000 to get it sold. If I couldn't sell it off market or something like that. And so then I'm probably looking at equity that I actually have in the property after realtor fees would be like $155K. And so if I take that same $19,000 per year that I'm making right now, and I say the amount that I could be leveraging is $155K, this ratio looks a lot worse than my cash on cash did. So this is only a 12% return on equity. So as the property went up in value and my mortgage got paid down a little bit, now I have cash that is an equity that is tied up idle inside of the property and not being put to work that potentially could be put to work. And so it's really important, I guess, for me, and I hadn't done this math previously, and so I'm really glad someone pointed this out to me. I hadn't considered the disadvantage that I was at here by leaving this equity tied up in the property. And I had talked about a cash out refi. So let's run what that could look like. Maybe I don't need to sell. Maybe I just do a cash out refi, but I don't know if it's enough to move the needle. And so I think the part that I just want to be really clear about is like, I said to someone yesterday, I said, yeah, I'm only getting a 12% return on equity. And they're like, what's wrong with your property? Like, why is it not performing? I'm like, oh no, it's performing just fine. It's just that I have so much more equity now than I did before. Mm-hmm. So if we were to look at, doing a cash out refi, if I have a $500,000 property and I could potentially get a 70%, so I'm like doing times 0.7, loan to value on it wouldn't be able to be a HELOC probably because it's a second home. It would probably be a HE loan. I have heard someone say they were able to find a HELOC on a second home. I haven't been able to find that, so I'll have to do more research on that if this was an option for me. Mm-hmm. But a 70% loan to value would mean that I would be able to borrow a total of $350,000 against this property. And since I already owe $320,000 against it, that allows me to take out $30,000 of my equity, which really isn't enough for me to go do another deal. Now, if by some miracle or through some kind of connection, I was able to find a HE loan that would do a 80% loan to value, now if we take 500 times 0.8, I'm able to borrow a total of $400,000 against this property. And since I currently owe $320,000, that would mean I could take out an additional $80,000. And so by the math that we saw when I acquired this property, I could go, I was all into this for 75. So I could go do another deal with that 80,000 if I was able to find a HE loan or HELOC that would allow me to take out 80K. I could do another very similar deal. The problem is though, if I went and tried to do that exact same deal in this same market, using my same cleaner and my same handyman, like leverage the team that I have there aren't any 380 homes anymore because they've all increased to 500 in value. So I can't go find another one in that same market. So this is where I was faced with the conversation about like, okay, I probably would need to enter a different market if that's my budget, is the 80,000 for down payment and furnishings. Or I could just sell the property as well. Now I've got 155,000 to work with, and I could go do a bigger deal. I could do it in a different market, or I could get out of this neighborhood and go closer to the beach or closer to a different amenity, like into a better pocket of properties. So what am I missing?
Yeah. So I think that when it comes down to like when you're evaluating this, right, like it's good to take this into consideration for all of your properties, probably like once a year, in my opinion, because if you're not, then like, what does your personal financial statement look like? And that's where you like really got to stay on top of everything. But for you, Carrie, like when we're looking at this particular deal, it is, so sorry about that. I need to turn my notifications off.
Don't worry, we'll edit this part out too.
There you go. When you're looking at this deal for you, Carrie, I think that we have to consider what you are trying to put your money to work towards. Like, so what is your goal, right? And that comes down to everybody when you're looking at these. Is your goal to move forward and get another property? Or is your goal, because we all know that you have this hotel deal going on right now, is your goal to put that money to the hotel? And so you have to weigh your options there. And then that kind of makes you take a step back and work a little bit more backwards of, if I throw it into another home, what is my return on equity for particular deals or cash on cash? And the same with the hotel, and what's going to put your money to work faster and give you a better return. So that's the question. So like, what do you think your thoughts are on that?
Well, I'm glad you kind of made me think about it in terms of like what, where am I going from here? So if I were to go reinvest this 155, like if I sold this property and I went and reinvested this 155 in another single family home, that would take time and effort to locate that property. And so I think when we're looking at like, that 12% return on equity, that's low enough to motivate me to take the time and effort to go find another deal. I was talking with somebody recently about it who said, like, if the return on equity is above 15%, it's not there. It's lower than what you'd want, but there's not enough of an incentive for your time and effort to go find the other deal. Right. Mm-hmm. Because I do have this hotel project on my plate. I don't know if I want to go travel, look for to that market, look for the other property there, etc. So
and start a new team, right? Like, because that's another part of it too. It's not just like finding the deal. It's like getting a whole other team in place, finding new people, and that's a lot more time too.
If I went to a different market, yeah,
exactly.
So I can go to the same market and find a new property there. That requires my travel time. It requires finding the property, furnishing the property, managing the build out, whatever. At the same time, I'm trying to do a hotel project. But then, if I just did the home equity loan to go do another deal, it's hard to find one in that market that would cash flow at that price point. I think if I went to a different market, I could find one that cash flowed at that, with just needing 80 up front. But again, then I'm researching another market while I'm trying to do this hotel project. So I think you're right that like having the hotel project might be a decision factor for me. But for someone who wasn't doing a hotel project, mm-hmm. I still think there's value to looking at this number and saying, like, would I want to take the 30 or 80,000 in a HE loan, go do another deal that's a similar size, or would I sell and go do a bigger deal?
Or multiple deals, right? Correct. Like that doesn't even just have to be one. Like 155 could essentially, depending on the size of the project, get you 2 or 3 deals.
It could. Yes, exactly.
If you find the right deals. So
yeah. And for me personally, I would rather have, one larger property that produces the same amount of money instead of 2 small properties that would produce that amount of money, because there's an economy of scale. Right now, I only have 1 HVAC system to worry about maintaining. I only have 1 roof to worry about maintaining. I only have 1 driveway to shovel, get somebody there to take care of the lawn and the snow removal and whatever. Now, there's just fewer moving parts, right? If you have that economy of scale by doing it 1 bigger property. So that's for me personally, I would rather that. And so let's say I didn't have the hotel project. I almost feel like doing 1 better property. And maybe there's a chance then too that I go from 25% cash on cash at my current scenario. And maybe I would find another one that was 25%. Maybe I can go to 30% cash on cash if I leveled up. I mean, we talk a lot about how like some markets have saturation, but it's really around a certain bedroom count. Like let's say I could afford to do a larger property that maybe had a larger number of bedrooms. And in that given market, maybe, tipping the scale above the standard size home to a more luxury property would move the needle in a way like at Disney, in the Disney market, if you are able to get to a larger size property, the returns are much better than, your 2-bed, 1-bath condo. Right. So just kind of thinking through that piece right away, really helps kind of, I guess, put this in perspective for me. I would say that like I had told you at the beginning, my intuition was telling me it was time to probably sell this property. And I do a lot of things based on, what my intuition tells me. But I do have people in my life who are like, I'm sorry, I need you to explain why you think this is a good idea. And so like, for my husband or my accountant, they're going to be like, what? And so this is a metric I can use to help kind of explain why I think this is a good idea. So
yeah, well, I think it's important for like listeners out there to also hear that like sometimes when you're in this field and you are the expert, it's very important that you listen to your gut, right? Because it's very clear by the numbers that you didn't have a good cash on cash, your return on equity is not there. And so like your gut was telling you the right thing. Like it's kind of, you're at a crossroads here about what to do. So listening to your gut and moving forward and deciding whether or not to act on that. Of course, having conversations with those people around you are important, but don't just deny your gut feelings, because they'll kind of lead you in the right direction, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what you made a very good point on too, Carrie, is that when you are deciding this, for those getting into maybe larger homes or larger equity deals, you having a place that's going to bring you the same amount of money with more units in one place, that whole commercial side is a really big topic of discussion in this particular industry right now. So if you're not comfortable with that, like ask the right questions, because you could be missing out on some pretty big money moves just by not feeling comfortable going outside of your box. So reach out to some people and get some information on that, because right now, like a lot of people kind of that are in this almost a very similar situation as this house, but opposite of like their actual investments in their retirement funds. They've got money sitting there that is not making them anything, right? And so they're having to do a very similar evaluation on what to do. And so if you're at that crossroads too, or with a different property like Carrie, like start looking into some bigger deals that can make you some better money.
Yeah. Well, and I think after kind of flushing it out without the hotel project in the picture, like let's bring that back in and talk through that, because I think that's where you're leaning with what you were about to say. So like, because I do have a hotel project that I'm currently working on, I could take this 155, put it into that project, and I probably will get a better return, for one. But two, the really exciting thing about commercial that excites me is that the value of commercial property is based on the net operating income the property can generate. So if I own this single family home in Florida and it generates a net after debt service, so that's not even net operating income, that's cash flow. But let's say it generated, I think my mortgage payments alone, well, I'd have to do the math, but let's say that the net operating income before debt service was approximately $30,000. Well, in commercial, you could take that $30,000 and multiply it by a cap rate. Let's call it 10% for right now. And a property that produces 30,000 would be worth 300. In the single family residential space, your property value is not tied to the amount of cash flow that it can produce. So if I go to sell this property, I'm at the mercy of the residential home buyer market. Like, who wants to move here? Who wants to live in this property? Who wants to have it as a vacation home, etc. Whereas in commercial, we do have the economy of scale. We have all the units in one place. It can operate in a more efficient way, for one, but two, that operating income that I produce translates into property value. And it gives me an opportunity to force appreciation through that. And that's the part that I think, was exciting to me about doing a commercial project.
I would have to agree. And I think like for me, I think a better way like that I put it is I have more control over the situation for commercial deals when it comes to this, because again, we set the rates, we can push all of that into that particular property. And then every time we do, it just ups the value. And I feel like we get a better return off of it than we do on our single family homes, because like the 75,000 that you put into this home, you may not see, like if you weren't evaluating this and when you sold it later on, you may never see that back as a full return. Right. Mm-hmm. But for a commercial deal, you put 75,000 into it, more than likely you're getting a 15 to 20% return, like immediately, even at refinance, Mm-hmm. So I think that's a very important thing is realizing that the control that you have over those situations.
Yeah. And we're going to dissect our hotel deals at a later point in time. Yeah. But for today, I think this conversation, Allie, thank you for listening and chiming in, just like helping me with this decision. I mean, I know my kids are going to be bummed that their vacation house is going away, but I think that's the right thing to do. And for someone who wants to purchase it, like, it still would be a good cash on cash for someone entering it, even at this price, because if it's 500,000 and they can put 10% down on a second home loan plus 25, they might even be able to buy it furnished from me, right? Like, now they don't have any furnishings or anything required. And I mean, I did have to do some work to the property. I did some paint, flooring. I remodeled one bedroom. So like, that part's all done. It's turnkey, ready to go. That's less cash that they have to bring up front, fully furnished with, I mean, everything.
Well, and it's a selling perk on your end too, that you can probably list a little bit more above market, but they're coming in with everything done and all that. So you're giving them a whole package deal.
Exactly. And now they can put down the 10% on a second home loan. And they might even have a better cash on cash return than I did, because the amount of capital they have to bring could be less than 75. They might just bring like 55, for their down payment plus closing costs. Maybe they don't have any other expenses. And so now they're making the same 19 cash flow with bringing less to the table than I did. I mean, this could be great for somebody.
Right.
So,
and I think, and Karen, before we hop off, like, I think that's a very important thing for listeners to know too, is that when you are going into a deal, and like, a lot of people go back through and they look at like what the previous purchase price was and all this stuff, and they kind of get a little, for lack of better words, like a little hatred towards like, oh my gosh, they bought it for this.
Only paid $380. Who is she to ask $500?
Exactly. Like,
I did all the heavy lifting for you.
Yes, exactly. So like, who does she think she is asking that much money? But people aren't looking at it exactly like what we're speaking about here, is that you have to step back and look at it from your cash on cash and your return on equity as to what you're going to be getting, because it could be better than what they did, which is why they're selling it. So don't think that they're trying to get out of a bad deal, and don't think that just because they're hiring the price, they think that they're beating the market, or they're just trying to get in while it's hot.
Right.
So,
you're exactly right. In fact, as a realtor, my clients often ask me that question, like, well, they only paid this for it. Why is it worth so much more? Or, are they trying to, gouge on price because, they've done all the heavy lifting? And it's like, well, no, this would be 500 would be market value for this property, even if it wasn't an already established short-term rental with bookings for next year already. Like, it wouldn't. It would still be worth the same amount of money. So I think you're right to have the buyer look at it from the perspective of, how much money do I need to bring to the table to make this much cash flow, regardless of what the purchase price of the property is.
Right. And get the return that they want. And that's a very important. So like, if you are, for us, like where that plays in for us in our business is we co-host. So like, as we are coaching along buyers, like, this is something that a lot of real estate agents in our area are educating the buyers on. So like, we take the moment to like calculate that and do that for them. So make sure that if you're in that position, you're helping home buyers, whether you're a realtor or a host, like, educate them on that so that they don't get sour on a deal that, like, especially if it's in an area you can make money on. Don't let them get sour on something that they shouldn't be sour about. Because they could end up missing a great opportunity just because they were trying to, not get run over by somebody on price.
Right. Well, and I know there's a lot of speculation and concern about home values. And I think it's important to recognize that real estate is local, right? So the market that this property is in has an extremely high amount of migration. People are moving to this particular metro area for job development. There's just so much growth there that I do not anticipate this home value going down. And so I'm not looking to sell it because I think I need to get rid of it before it decreases. That was part of my market research when I bought it, is our home value stable here? That was the research I was doing 2 years ago. I found the migration, I found the job growth trends, I found, what was going on in that economy. And that was part of evaluating the market. But that's not the reason that people would be selling, is because they're like scared that it's going to go down or something like that. It's just, I think you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. So some really good things today on how to evaluate property. So thanks, Carrie, for sharing your real deal.
Yeah, you're getting like the authentic first time I did this really math. So
Yeah.
Thanks
But
for
it's
bearing with
great.
me in real time.
Yeah. And so you guys will have to keep up with Carrie and what she's doing and what plays she decides to make. And she'll try to keep us updated on that too. But if you have questions about cash on cash or return on equity, drop it in our Facebook group. Let us and some other experienced, hosts and investors help you out and help you determine. And we would love to work through some of those deals for you. Also, if you have a deal that you want to come on our podcast and let us talk through with you, like let's get you scheduled. So reach out to us at on our Facebook page or at she.invest.podcasts@gmail.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
Until next week, guys.
Bye.
Thanks so much.